So this morning's session is on making the most of your subject matter experts. I'm going to take you through a set of slides here, but really the idea is to give you some case studies and some ideas and some inspiration on how you can most effectively use your subject matter experts. So hopefully you can see my slides at the moment. That should have come up on the screen here. So let's get cracking. Well, there are many faces or many definitions of SMEs, and it's really exploring the part they play. And it's certainly a lot more than perhaps was previously the case in the burgeoning days of instructional design over the sort of past decade or so. No longer are they simply being used to help develop a raw script and turn it into some online learning. There are many ways in which your SMEs can really bring even greater value using them very cleverly in an online environment. And we're going to look at the different roles they play. And I'm going to ask you a question about whether you think your SMEs are playing those roles or ready to play those roles in your organisations. I'm also going to share with you some ideas on how you can build SMEs into your blend of learning. For those of you that are not familiar with Willow DNA's work, we specialise in corporate MOOCs, online academies and complex subjects online. So actually there's lots of ways in which we use SMEs in the blend of a piece of learning that occurs over a period of time. So it's much, much more than essentially using them to develop the raw script. There are many more things we do with them. And I'm also going to take you through some case studies that show you how we have brought SMEs in with their various different hats on, what that looks like in practice, and hopefully give you some ideas for your organisation. And we'll also look at how you can get the most from your SMEs. So how to nurture them, how to support them, and really some ideas. And just one moment, just before I go into that presentation, I just want to open up the attendees tab here so that I can see it. So apologies, just one moment, just so I can see that that's happening. Lovely. Okay, so let's get started. Okay. So the many faces of SMEs. So what do we mean by an SME? Well, there are lots of different people that you may want to tap into when you're trying to tackle a learning problem. That may not necessarily be in a formal learning program. It may be a particular organisational need you have to share some expertise from one area to another. They could be seasoned professionals in your organisations, technical specialists in a tool or a particular subject matter. They may be mentors or gurus or advisors to others. They could be your talent and your star performers or your master salespeople that are achieving great things and are delivering good value, and you want to share that insight and those lessons learned. It could be that you do something that's very specialist and you have rare talent that there are very few people in which this knowledge resides and you want to share that with others. Or you may have champions that are actually very good at nurturing others and developing their insights and learning. So it's certainly a lot more than just somebody that knows a lot about some stuff. They take various different shapes and forms, have various different personalities and preferred ways of working. So it's worth thinking about what type of SME you want for what purpose. But I thought it was useful just to run through some definitions at this stage. And what I'm going to take you through, and I'm going to ask you a poll question on this in a moment, is I'm going to talk you through the way in which we use subject matter experts when we're developing substantive programs online. And they take various different forms. Andrew, I just wanted to check, your hand is still up. Did you have a question? I will just go and check. Sorry, I just have to out of here. I just want to check that you've not logged a question. You haven't. Okay, Andrea, sorry, I can see your hand up. Oh, it's gone down. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. It's lovely. So we have the curator, and that's particularly important for those of you that are looking at corporate MOOCs or online academies. We have the online tutor. We have the author, a more traditional role probably for your SMEs, but we'll think about what role and what shape an author can take, and the coach and mentor. So for the curator, really this person is going to be able to help you find the best of what you've got. Obviously some of it may reside within them or the working practices that they've instigated in their area of the organisation. But a curator is also very good at validating and looking at what you've already got and actually getting more value out of some stuff that you may already have. It may well be that a better blend and some contextualisation from a really effective subject matter expert could be what you need. And that can be very important for something like a corporate MOOC, where you may well be curating material, perhaps partnering with a university. You may be curating material that you already have and also developing new. And your subject matter experts are able to validate and check that essentially this is really reflecting our reality. You know, the drive for corporate MOOCs is that rather than send talent on a generic MBA, you're able to do something that's really much more hard hitting. And that's the same for online academies or even shorter courses, that it reflects the real working issues that people have. And your subject matter experts can be very good at curating what you've got and making sure it's got the right tone of voice, that it's authentic and that it's hitting your business need. And like I said, that's particularly pertinent for corporate MOOCs and developing online academies where you have a whole blend of learning and making sure that your e-learning, your videos, your ebooks, the discussion topics that you're creating, that they're all in line. And they know the reality, they know what's happening on the ground, so they're very useful. Also, your subject matter experts may be fantastic at helping to facilitate and curate your communities of practice. So where you have communities of professionals coming together and sharing lessons learned, it's incredibly important to support and nurture user-generated content for sure. But what you want to make sure that the things that you're publishing are really hitting the mark. Sometimes you can end up inadvertently and accidentally generating a lot of noise, and it's useful for learners to have some checks and balances to make sure that the lessons learned and the resources that you're providing are going to be useful and reflect their reality. And a SME as a curator can be very good at checking those and making sure that they're useful, maybe going back to the person that's contributing and asking some more questions. So that's one role they can play. The other role that they can play is of online tutor. Now, this does depend very much on your subject matter expert and whether this is a set of competencies that you feel that they have and is in their nature, I suppose. But they can act as very effective online tutors, running webinars and virtual classrooms if they're particularly gifted and very good at running presentations. They may well be an academy tutor. So if you have an academy, let's say on leadership or sales, one of the key issues with programs online that take place over a period of time is that learners want to feel that somebody cares about their experience, that's there to support them, and is setting the rhythm and the heartbeat. And your subject matter experts can be very good at provoking discussions, that asking the contemporary questions, the things that are really happening now, and help keep that buzz around your program that's occurring over a period of time. And they can also act as very good moderators and facilitators for discussions, for forums, and for communities. So they're people that care, and it's a new facet to their role. And for many, it can be a very enjoyable role, a very rewarding role. And there's also author. Now, this is a much more conventional role for your SME. They're developing raw script, which you can turn into digital content or workshop content. But they could also be case studies and become your gurus and your faces of your lessons learned, and essentially the ability for you to create a corporate YouTube or corporate TED Talks, where those subject matter experts, where everybody goes to Sarah or everybody goes to Dave because they know what they're doing, that you're able to spread that best practice. And that's very popular in many organisations. And it's very easy to do. And it's a great way to start conversations and actually start to uncover burgeoning a desire for some formal programs around issues that your learners may well be facing at the moment. But the author is certainly a more conventional role for SMEs. For those SMEs that I would say fall into the champion and guru and sort of nurture camp, let's not forget that some of them, and not all, but many of them may well have talents in mentoring and coaching. And they can be extremely important and are often used in onboarding and talent management, so passing on the baton. And particularly in this, the drive for apprenticeships and professional apprenticeships, and of course a lot of that work going online, they can be fantastic as coaches and mentors to those that you're bringing up and managing talent through the organisation. They are also a great resource to provide individual, very intensive support on bigger programs. As we know, and it's always been the case, it isn't just because of online, that learning and development are always under scrutiny and always under budget scrutiny, let's be clear, on what they can deliver and how much stuff they can get done. By using those SMEs that display those behaviours that they make good coaches and mentors, then they're able to provide really intensive face-to-face support if you've got really good formal learning collateral online. So it's really worth thinking about how you can use those. So what I wanted to ask you at this stage, I was just going to stop this presentation for a moment. What I wanted to ask you is, I've got a poll question here that I wanted to open up, and I wanted to understand your experience thus far of working with subject matter experts. What types of subject matter experts are you working with at the moment, or that you're hoping to nurture within your organisation? And it'd be great if you can answer the question below. It'd be really good to understand what types of roles you're used to working with, or where you think the future of SMEs is in terms of delivering value to your organisations. So I'll just give you a moment to have a look at the poll question, just launching now. And if you could pop your answers in, that would be fantastic. I'll just give you a minute or so to have a think about that question. Lovely, and I can see the answers coming in. Thank you, everybody. That's wonderful. Lovely, we're almost all there. We're at 70%, so just a few of you still mulling over. Give you a few more seconds. Almost there. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Once you've got everybody's votes in, I will show you the results. And they're very interesting, actually. And it's nice to see from my perspective. Okay, give you a couple more seconds. Got a minute. Okay, and let's close that up so we can move on. And we'll share the results there. So that's very interesting, actually. It's quite a balanced view. And unsurprisingly, obviously, as author, that's always going to be a core part of what they're going to be able to do in order to deliver you contextual subject matter that goes beyond the generic and really hits home, absolutely. But I'm really heartened to see that there are other roles that you see subject matter experts taking in your organisation. And that's great, because I'm going to share with you in a moment some case studies that will hopefully help you to see, give you some ideas on how you can make that a reality. So thank you, everybody, for that. And we'll share the results, obviously, during the as the part of the recording of the webinar later. So we've looked at our different roles of SMEs. Let's have a look at our SMEs in the blend. What does this actually look like? Well, let's take our first example of SME as coach or coach mentor. The example I'm going to give you here is some work that we're doing with Telefonica O2 on the flipped classroom. Now, this is for part of a leadership academy focusing on performance coaching for leaders throughout the organisation. And the concept here was if we could develop some good contextualised but well-grounded content on coaching. Obviously, there's a lot of great coaching content out there in the public domain, that we work with subject matter experts to make sure that the key frameworks and methodologies that we're bringing out obviously meet Telefonica O2's needs. But what we're able to do is then, in a face-to-face setting, where people are forming action learning sets online, that they're going through these formal learning experiences, that they have assignments to do, that then a subject matter expert in coaching can come in and give them very personalised support. So in that classroom session, you're not talking about, well, what does the GROW model mean, or getting them to practice and role play coaching. People are actually encouraged during the formal learning programme, which looks a little bit like this. I've just given you a snapshot here. Obviously, there's a lot of content that sits behind here. But as people are working through this formal content you can see here, at various points in the program, it's not actually listed on this screen, but in another module, there is then the opportunity to go to a face-to-face session. And that face-to-face session will then focus on, okay, so one of the delegates here, let's say it's Julie. Okay, Julie has a particular person in their team that's a burgeoning talent, and I want to know how I can coach them, how I can come up with some really effective and deep coaching questions, because I find this element of coaching difficult. And they can get very, very intensive personalised support in face-to-face. So your face-to-face is much, much more impactful. And it doesn't take up as much time. So it's a great way to utilise a subject matter expert that may be in big demand, and certainly within organisations, the skills of coaching, they can really, really be very useful indeed. Oh, I've just had a message saying that you can only see the poll, so let me hide the results. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully that's a little bit better, and you can see that there. Is that looking a bit better? Just check your question here. Lovely, you're still seeing the poll. Sorry about that, everybody. That's great. Fantastic. Lovely. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's the O2 programme. So as you say, you've got this formal learning happening here, but around this you've got a number of interventions. There's actually a launch event and a midpoint, and then a final review and a final intensive one-to-one session with the coach. But like I said, coaching resource is difficult to find, effective coaching resource in organisations, and they're often very stretched. And this is a great way to ensure that people get very, very intensive support, rather than everybody in your organisation needing an individual coach, which of course is very difficult to achieve. But this is a great way to do it. So thinking about your great coaches in your organisation and how you can use them. So you've got formal learning online with personalised coaching. They're also then acting as facilitators of the action learning sets online. So the discussions continue online. After the launch event, people are starting to think about, okay, well, in my team, I have these particular performance issues with my team. Let's see how we can work together. And the coaches are able to facilitate those conversations online. They're also used then as expert insight providers in video. So as people are going through the learning, the GROW model, for example, let's say that was a model that's being used, is an effective model. It's very easy, it's very process driven, but the video expert insights really give that context, that flavour that you need for your organisation. So what does it look like here? What are we trying to achieve? Because in the end, all these programs have to be achieving a business need. And your SMEs are able to add that through video insights as well. So it doesn't need a really heavy touch, but it does give your SMEs the opportunity to explore a new role within your organisation. It's very impactful indeed. So that's an idea for you for your SME as a coach or potentially as a mentor. Let's have a look at some of the more conventional work then here as your SMEs as authors of your programme. Well, the work that we do with the IPA, and those of you that are familiar with Willow's work, then you will probably know this very well. And sorry, I'm just going to stop for a moment because I can see that there is there's a hand up. I've got a hand up from Lauren. Lauren, did you have a question for me? If you have, if you could pop it into the questions, that's great, and I'll have a look at it in a moment. So I'll stop and come back to that in a second. But thanks, Lauren, for putting your hand up there. With the IPA. The certification programs and accreditation programs that they develop for the advertising media industry, the reason why they are so effective and they have their particular flavour is they are written by people that work in agencies. So it's not just written by the professional body. It's not written by us taking some case studies and use cases. We work in conjunction with people that really do this on a day-to-day basis and have done so for many years. And it gives it a particular flavour, and a very effective flavour at that. So if we take something like that, running effective appraisals, now this is an interesting one because a number of their programmes, of course, are very much geared towards advertising and media based skills. But something like running effective appraisals is actually useful for all organisations. But again, using an SME that is from advertising or media, gives it a particular flavour. And what it means is the content you're developing, so the exercises and scenarios that you have in e-learning, the videos and the case studies, like these TED Talks that you're developing, the readers that you develop, the discussions, the quick guides, they all have that subject matter expert insight. So the tone of voice that you're using, the practical assignments that you're giving are very much tailored to the reality of an advertising and media agency. So it's worth thinking about the role that they play, and what we did with them is not only are they developing the raw script, but we are then getting them to ratify the scenarios. They're acting as online tutors, they're providing video, so they're going beyond and they have a real vested interest. And it's a great way to work with a subject matter expert because it really helps them understand the value that they're bringing to the program itself. And you've got somebody answering questions and facilitating a program that really knows what they're talking about. Moving on from that, and obviously on a variation on the theme, is the SME more as a facilitators, helping people navigate their way through a learning experience. Now, with the work we did with IPG Media Brands, we developed a formal learning program on a very important strategic tool. And for those of you that have been on webinars that I've delivered previously for the LPR, you'll know this case study, so I won't go through it in great depth here. I wanted to pick out a particular facet of it that I think is very important with subject matter experts. We had to work very intensively with subject matter experts, of course, to develop the content itself, because it's very complex technical content. But also, we were connecting with a community that they have. So the way that you get to the formal learning, so this is some of the formal learning resources that we developed for them. The way that you get to this isn't just through our portal pathway, which I'll talk about in a little while, which is specifically designed to host complex programs online. The way that they actually get to the first step through there is through the Yammer community. So this Yammer community is facilitated and nurtured by subject matter experts on this very complex technical tool. And what the formal learning is doing is helping to demystify it. The tool itself is world leading. It's had a huge amount of investment, but it can be really intimidating for a new person going in and having a look at this. So what happens is you have a Yammer community where people are saying, I'm about to do a pitch to this particular FMCG organisation. How could I use this tool to give me some really good data that I could use in my presentation? And the SMEs start to nurture that conversation and encourage them to go on to the formal learning and use the discussions and use the Yammer community to help contextualise it for them. So the subject matter experts didn't only help us develop the raw script, they're nurturing the community that is developing interest and driving people into your programme, and then also taking the case studies from those people that are in the programme and putting them back in the community. So they're really intensively involved. And this delivered, like I say, for those of you that have seen this before, you'll know that the figures we're talking about here, this delivered incredible value to the organisation because the SMEs then could broadcast to so many more people than they could previously. But it takes a bit of time. And when you're working with an SME that's going beyond developing your script and is going to facilitate a program for you online, you need to think about the way that you support them as well. Because in the short term, what they're doing essentially is they're acting as your PR, that they're broadcasting, they're directing, and they're generating interest, and they're trying to drive traffic through to your programs. Then what happens is people are using your formal programs, they're able to add some of that additional context. Things are changing very fast in the organisation, so they can ask some specific, answer some specific questions that are happening right now. And then what they're able to do is then they can notice patterns of, okay, so so-and-so in our New York office is obviously very experienced with working with utilities-based companies. And we've got some people in Hong Kong that we know that are going to move into that space. So they're also able to start to make those connections. And that's a really exciting place for SMEs to be. Now, I'll be frank with you, not all SMEs can sit in this space. You're going to have some SMEs that prefer to, frankly, be the expert and do a lot more broadcasting and directing. But you will have those that you know that have the talent of being able to pull these threads together and create these communities and create these case studies. And that's how Media Brands did it, through creating a formal learning program that set the scene, that gets everybody on the same page so they're able to start to do some of this knowledge sharing, this collaboration, and really start to add to the formal knowledge that you already have. So those are some of the ways in which we have worked with subject matter experts in some of the programs that we have developed. Of course, let's not forget though that you've got subject matter experts as subject matter experts. Let's use them for what they were designed to do. And what you have here is you're identifying what this diagram here is really explaining the process by which SMEs work with you. So you identify your talent. They may well be doing presentations, giving briefings, running workshops. They may just be the subject matter expert that everybody crowds around their desks or is always on call to them. And what you're trying to do is capture that and repurpose it for different means. So it may well be that these are your people that are giving lectures, giving presentations. What you do is you capture that in some form of technology. I'll talk about some of the technology that we use at Willow to do that. And those learning assets can then be blended into learning paths, to taking short video case studies, let's say, of 5-10 minutes long, and then wrap around other learning experiences to start to create your online community. Or it could be that you're chapterizing a lecture that becomes part of your corporate MOOC. It could be that those case studies then become part of the resources that a community has, or if you're developing some sort of corporate YouTube. Or it may be that you then want to develop a platform that's performance support, quick case studies. So how do I do such and such? I'll go and have a look at that video case study from that person that tells me exactly how I access this and how I go through the process steps that I need to achieve the goal that I need to achieve. And the way in which we've done that with various customers, this is a highly successful specialist in providing veterinary CPD and veterinary training, that of course here, your subject matter experts are the program. To be able to train a professional specialist as vets needs to be delivered by very, very experienced vets. And these vets are under a huge amount of time pressure, incredibly so. So quite often what they do is they time block their time out and they're giving really effective lectures. And people like to go to those, but obviously there's a real appetite now to be able to consume these online. But sitting through an hour-long lecture isn't exactly ideal. So that what you do is you wrap around the lectures with other types of resources, you chapterize them, you make them searchable, and you're able to engage people with short, sharp, focused lectures that have other materials that reinforce the learning and that start to look at how they're going to apply that in the workplace. And the way that Improve International are doing that are through our integration with Pathway. And our Pathway tool, you can see here, is the portal that is hosting all of this learning. And Ubercast is a technology by which you can capture lectures. There are other programs that do this as well, but this is essentially a piece of kit that if you've already got lectures and regular presentations happening, it sits in the room with you and it records the lectures and it uploads them. And you're able then to take extracts and blend that into a program. So that's one way that you can use them and make lectures much more effective. One of the criticisms, and those of you that are on my LPI webinar on MOOCs, we talked about this to quite some extent with MOOCs, is that for those that perhaps have been a little bit lazy, what's happened is they've uploaded lots and lots of lectures, asked a few quizzes, set a few assignments, and that's that. And of course, that's not very effective, it's not very engaging, and it's no different really than sitting in a lecture hall and falling asleep, as I'm sure we've all done for any of you that have been at university. So the idea here is that in combination of creating an effective learning path and learning program that has the right blend of materials, that your lectures are much more engaging and much more focused and much more digestible, especially for a time-poor audience. It may well be, though, that's great for lectures. It may well be that you have some people that actually aren't at the moment delivering lectures or presentations, but you know they've got some really good stuff, some really good material, and they present it very well, and people like going to them for support. How could you capture that? Well, a lot of organisations have already done and set up corporate YouTubes, short videos. But you could be a little bit more ambitious. The other tool that we integrate with is a tool called Panopto. And what you're able to do there is not only capture your presenter, but you're also able to synchronize it with other courseware, with slides, with other demonstration videos, with scenarios that they're able to present in a richer way. And again, that's another way to really, I've called it corporate YouTube plus. It's not just the talking head, it's them able to share that insight and expertise and really contextualize some of those processes and procedures and frameworks that you use in a richer way that you're able to search. And again, you could either use a technology like this to create a corporate YouTube of your subject matter experts, but that has more depth than perhaps you've seen already. Or again, you could chapterize this and put this into a blended program as we saw before. So there are other ways to use your subject matter experts as subject matter experts. So that's just exploring some of the context behind how subject matter experts become part of the learning blend, a part of the development process of developing an effective program. I wanted to share with you a very specific example here, where you're adding rich context to a program that essentially could have been a relatively dry compliance program, and it's certainly anything but that. This is a program that was developed for the Royal College of Physicians. You can see a picture here of our portal pathway. Now, in the UK, all physicians, all doctors in the UK have to undergo validation every 5 years. As you can imagine, it's not the thing that's top of the agenda for a doctor. There's lots of other very, very important work they have to do on a day-to-day basis, but it must be done. And there are materials out there that will take them through the process, what they need to do, and essentially the principles of revalidation. But the Royal College of Physicians had much higher ambitions than that. What they wanted to do was create something that doctors really found very valuable and would come back to and would use, and that would facilitate their experience of going through revalidation. So what actually happened here, what you could have done is create a piece of e-learning with a subject matter expert from the General Medical Council saying, could you just take us through revalidation, all the top points, take us through the timeline, and there you go. And the Royal College of Physicians wanted to do much, much more than that. So we work with subject matter experts to understand what is it like for a doctor on a day-to-day basis? What types of evidence could they be gathering in their day-to-day work? What does it feel like to go through an appraisal? What types of challenges will they have in an appraisal? What does that typically look like? How could we accelerate and support them developing their portfolio? What would make life easier for them? And that's what we created. So yes, it takes you through the process, but it also uses that subject matter insight to say, one of the trickiest things with revalidation is finding the time to develop your evidence portfolio. Or sometimes doctors trip up because they're asked this question and they need to answer it in this way. And what you do is you provide not just e-learning, but workbooks, but practical frameworks for them to develop their portfolio. You provide interactive scenarios and examples of real appraisals happening with real doctors, and you give that insight and that flavour, and it makes it much, much more credible. So you've got the context, you've got the application of this compliance process, and you've got performance support, so they can come back into this at the point at which their appraisal is booked. They may have done this program 6 months previous, but they'll remember that, there's that workbook that I could use to now structure my evidence ready for my appraisal. You've also got, in something like this, the authentic voice, and it's really important. Understanding, written by doctors, for doctors, understanding why revalidation is so important, and that develops that trust then. And it helps them understand that it's been written by people that have really got to go through this same process with them. So your script authors are giving that deep insight into your working reality. You use them to develop authentic scenarios. So run past some scenarios with them. Make sure that it really does reflect working reality and the culture of the audience that you're dealing with. They also help to set the rhythm. So when you're developing an online program, your subject matter experts can help you validate, is this over the right time frame? Are these learning resources the right length? Over what time frame should we be setting the objective that you complete this program? And I think probably most important is the authentic tone of voice, that it's written by your peers and you understand it and you know that it's valid. I've got a number of questions that have popped up here. I'm just going to check there aren't any new ones. No, that's lovely. So I just wanted to check as we went through, so I wasn't ignoring somebody's question. So that's the Royal College of Physicians. So those are some of the case studies, some of the ideas and ways in which you can use them. And I know that they're brief, and I only have a short amount of time with you this morning. So for anybody that wants any more further information on this, on a number of those, I have some case studies and white papers that I'm very happy to share with you. So please do contact me afterwards if you'd like a little bit more insight on some of those, because some of them may well be very pertinent to you. You may be thinking, yes, that's exactly the type of program we want to roll out. Could I get some more ideas of what you did? I'm very happy to share with you some of that detail and the way that we work. So what do we believe at Willow are the key success factors of working with them? Well, before I tell you what Willow think, let me tell you what some people that I'm sure many of you, and in fact probably all of you online have heard of. We're talking about your SMEs as your content developers here, as your support for your content development, I should say. And Jane Bozoff, back in 2011, raised an interesting point, actually, and I think this is very pertinent if you're moving from beyond your SMEs purely helping you develop script. Because if you want them to help nurture learning, to facilitate it, to be those online tutors, to be some of those things that we talked about right at the start, I think Jane's right. It's finding the right SME. It may not always be the most experienced worker. And certainly my experience back in corporate life, sort of a decade ago, working in telcos, is that we had some very, very talented technical experts, but they may not be very good actually sharing that learning. It's not that they don't want to, but it may just be that that's not their strength. So sometimes you have to think about who are the people that can convey it with authenticity, simply in plain English and with enthusiasm and passion. And it may be that it's your most experienced worker, but sometimes it may be somebody that's not too many degrees removed from working reality now. So it may be your newer talent that remembers just what it was like to learn. So not having them too far removed from the audience that you're trying to focus on, and they remember what it was really like. And I think that's a lovely quote by Jane, and I really like that, and I think that's worth bearing in mind. Kathy Moore, when she's talking about dealing, when you're working with subject matter experts as your raw script authors, some of the things that you may trip up on already, and there's loads out there, I'm not going to concentrate too heavily on this because I think most of the writing is on SMEs as developers of raw script and some of the ways you can work with them, some of the points of pain. So there's lots out there, but I just thought I would summarise this because I think it's useful in the context of this webinar. That it's always important with subject matter experts that they may care deeply about the materials that they have. And you know as an instructional designer in your heart of hearts that it ain't fit for purpose. But before you make that judgment, thoroughly read what they gave you. I know it's very, very obvious, but read what they give you and involve them from the beginning. Explain what you're going to do with that script, explain the value of it, and help them to identify what people are really doing in the organisation, what they aren't doing. And the reason why Kathy mentions this is what it helps you to do is go back to point one and scrutinise what they've got much more effectively, rather than read it and go, okay, well, we're definitely not going to need that, not going to need that, not going to need that, and end up with a very upset subject matter expert on your hands. If you read it, you get under the skin, you're able to talk authentically about it, and then you're able to ask some questions about, okay, so this is the way that things are working at the moment. So what sorts of questions are people coming to you with? Where do you think we're struggling in the organisation? Where have you seen some examples of good practice? And then they are able to scrutinise their raw script as well. So you're not upsetting anybody, but you're able to do it much more objectively and with that business need driving it, and involving them in the beginning, helping them understand what you've done with their script, the learning design, and particularly getting them involved in brainstorming activities that are around realistic scenarios that help contextualise and give people a safe space to practice some complex skills is very, very useful indeed. So I think Kathy's top tips are actually pretty good, and you can go onto her blog and she gives you a little bit more detail on those. And I developed this might be a little takeaway for you, developed this little infographic in terms of best practice with your SMEs, and it's something you can sort of have on your desk and think about when we're working with SMEs. Are we doing this? What is the way? In what way are we connecting with them and working with them? And it's about using the totality of their experience, not just asking them, could you send over some PowerPoints? getting under the skin of their experience, understanding what actions need to be taken in the organisation, understanding what benefit it's going to give. Oh, and I've got I thought I had some questions there, but I haven't, sorry. Got a couple of warnings there coming up. What type of benefit is it going to give to the organisation? And what types of choices, giving the subject matter expert choices about, okay, well, I can see this is an important learning point. Should we do it like this? Should we do it like this? Rather than dictating, really getting them involved. And they could well become much better then, as a result, at developing the scripts that you need to develop programs going forward. So it's working with them to understand the business challenge, the knowledge needed, the action learning that needs to take place, and the results that you're trying to get out of it. And talking them through the learning design from that perspective, what you're trying to achieve, can be very helpful. They can also help you identify the most effective learning mix. So do your audience, are they operating at different levels? Do they have different needs? Are there different types of learning medium that will work best for one role and not another? And also with your SME, think about conveying their passion. If they're willing to work with you, it's because they care. It's because they care about what they're doing and they care about the programme. And if they do, then make sure you grab that authentic tone of voice, that if they're really passionate and they've got the skills, bring them in as course facilitators, help you develop realistic scenarios, expose them as the corporate gurus, help spread that subject matter expertise. So this is just a little infographic that you can take away when you're talking with people and how you want the role of SME to burgeon in your organisation, because it actually may challenge the roles and competencies that you're looking for in your people when you're taking them on. And this may be a nice check and balance for you to think about the types of combination of skills and the way that you'll work with them. When we talk about SMEs and MOOCs, then actually there are a number of points in which they're starting to get involved. I talked about the point that they are going to be helping you curate and make sure that your corporate MOOC represents reality, that isn't just a generic MOOC, that it is actually achieving a business need. But there are lots of places in which SMEs can really bring their benefits to bear. It may be that they are helping develop the access and the culture and engage people in the learning by helping to facilitate action learning sets, asking good questions at the start of the programme, motivating people. They can then become the linchpin of starting this learning community, that they are the online tutors, that they're the people that care about the experience. They're obviously going to be helping you develop the raw content for your formal learning experiences. But they're also going to be keeping an eye on the knowledge that's being constructed by the people going through the MOOCs, the case studies that they're sharing, the assignments that they're uploading. Maybe your SMEs could actually become assessors if you're going to have assignments and marked work as part of the MOOC. They can become the people that actually scrutinise the material that's being developed and help uncover that really great practice and that talent within your organisation. So you can see here that SMEs aren't just about, well, what should we put in our MOOC? They can be evolved at every stage of a substantive programme that occurs over a period of time to help really make it stick. So as we come to the final part of the webinar, I'm just going to stop this for a moment and I'm just going to give you a moment just to check. I'm just scrolling through. I haven't got any more questions. Just one moment. Does anybody have any questions for me at this stage? I'll just give a minute just for anybody to just jot some things down. You've all been incredibly polite, I must say. Can't see any new ones at the moment. So I'll come back in a moment and we'll check at the end. It may well be that you have some questions for me at the end. So let's have a look at some ideas on the ways in which you can work with your subject matter experts. Well, as we said before, there are many different roles, as you can see, beyond just helping you develop the raw script content and how you work effectively with them. Actually, think about the other roles that they can play. And we've talked about these at the moment, previously. Facilitators, authors, gurus, curators of MOOCs, curators of academies and online tutors. But that means you need to think quite carefully about, for each of these roles, developing some sort of skills profile. Is a content author the same as a curator or as a guru or as a facilitator? Well, they're not. I mean, a facilitator may well have different skills. You may find somebody that has the skills on both, that's for sure. They're not mutually exclusive, but you are looking for a different skill set and a different profile. So it may well be that you want to start to develop a almost a pseudo job description for your subject matter experts. So for your online tutors, what qualities are you looking for and how are you going to reward them in your organisation? So it's a big challenge for your organisations. You know, in a knowledge economy, you can't just have individuals performing well. You want to be able to spread that great practice throughout the organisation. So starting to build that into the way in which people are reviewed for their performance is really exciting, and I'm seeing a lot more of that happening. So think about what job descriptions you would pull together for each of those roles. One of the ways in which they can work very effectively indeed is actually being brought into the mix itself. So if we look at the role of online tutor or facilitator, this is an extract from a discussion from the IPA. Gwyneth March is actually the person that developed the raw script, but she's also a very talented presenter and trainer. So it was an absolute no-brainer to ask her to become an online tutor and to be able to provoke and nurture and moderate discussions online. And she keeps a real heartbeat to the programs, and also has helped generate more user-generated content by starting to pull people into that experience. So Gwyneth is one of those fantastic resources. Not only does she know her stuff, but she also has talent in presentation, has a proven track record in training. So we've been working with her to develop her skills in online facilitation and online tutoring, and given her training and support in order to move into that role. And that's essentially the central role that she plays for a number of programs for the IPA. So you've also got another challenge here, which is maximising your existing learning investments. Now, many of you may well already have a lot of material that's not quite hitting the mark. Well, actually, a little bit of a sprinkle of subject matter expertise magic, and you've suddenly got a highly contextualised programme. Again, for those of you that have been on other webinars that I have run, I apologise for my context is king. It really is becoming my broken record, but I believe in it so fervently. And the subject matter experts are the great way to add some context around a programme very easily. So I'll stick on this slide for the moment. A programme that we did some years ago, actually, with Ericsson, did exactly this. They'd already made an investment in a generic e-learning catalogue. They already had some good video content, but what they needed to do was develop some contextualisation around a massive transformation programme that they're going through. So although there were skills around decision-making, negotiation, handling difficult situations, customer management, etc., what the SMEs were able to do is we were able to use them to start to develop case studies and to curate the content that we had to make sure that you're maximising, you were able to reuse stuff you already had, but just adding those little contemporary case studies in there, adding some discussions that reflected what was happening in the organisation right now, was a great way to breathe new life into old existing content. It also takes some skills, mind you, of instructional design to create an effective blend so that you're revitalising it. But it does mean you can get more bang for your buck for things that you've already developed. So if we think about the programme development timeline where your SMEs are able to support you, and this is the timeline of a substantive programme, you've got them coming in as script authors or curators of MOOCs. You've got them helping you design realistic assignments and scenarios. You can get them involved in the acceptance testing when you've developed all of your programme and your material and make sure that what you've done is hitting the mark. So it's not just L&D signing off that the look and feel, the brand, etc., that it hits the mark and it hits the L&D brand, that your subject matter experts are ensuring that the learning objectives are really achieved in the right way possible. They then may well become your online gurus and you're putting them back into the programs to develop case studies for you, that they're your tutor and that they're your facilitator, and ongoing they're helping to manage communities. So you can see that your subject matter experts are vital throughout the entire development of any program that is of a complex nature or that's taking place over a period of time. One of the key issues with programs is we know a dropout, and your subject matter experts are a great way to do that. So as I say, for us being experts in complex learning challenges, there are many different ways in which we work with our customers to help bring subject matter experts to bear. It may well be in the content that we develop. It may well be in the platform that you use. It may well be in the training consultancy that you need to develop the skills in the organisation. But I hope that this morning I've given you some ideas to take away. Like I said, on a number of these points, there are some case studies and white papers that I'd be very happy to share with you afterwards. I'm very happy to share the slides. But before we finish today, can I just check that anybody's got any questions here? I've got one from Steve. Given that SMEs may need their own personal development plan depending on their role, would you recommend starting with coaching? That's a very good point, actually. And you've got here performance support floor walkers. I think that's true. I think it's about, again, it's a challenge that you will then have in terms of how will you nurture the skills of those SMEs. So if you're asking them to step up to the plate and become, let's say, a community facilitator, then you may well need to invest. We've done a lot of work in this area. You may well need to invest in developing a program that supports the skills in online facilitation or community management. So starting with coaching is quite a good way for them to start to understand the types of support that people really need in organisations, the questions that are coming up. I think one of the key issues here, though, with SMEs is, like you say, they do need their own personal development plan as well. So how are you going to develop those skills? And it's making sure that when we're talking about, how do you create an effective online program using your SME? But Steve raised a good point. What types of support are you going to have in place for your SMEs? And is your L&D team ready to support them? And it may well be that you find that you've got burgeoning programs then in subject matter experts coming to programs on becoming a community facilitator, writing good script content, what it means to be an online tutor. So I'd say probably a light touch with some coaching is a great place to start, but you may well find that you have a whole new skill set that you're developing. And I think that's really exciting, actually. Nicholas said, what about when you have to work with a particular SME, but they're too busy? Good point, Nicola, and I think that's where some of those video case studies can be really, really useful, because getting them to write a raw script can be very, very difficult indeed. But if they're able to capture it in an effective way that doesn't take them too long, and one of the things that I talk about when we talk about capturing video is that it doesn't have to be very, very sophisticated use of video. It can actually be very simple. So it can be simple stuff that's captured on an iPhone or captured on a video camera that you have around there, but that you use that to develop your raw script and go back to them with focused questions, rather than saying, actually, could you develop a whole PowerPoint slide deck? In fact, that's one thing that Kathy Moore talks about, is don't get them to develop that PowerPoint slide set because you're almost always going to end up having to rework it. If they've got it already, fantastic. But it's much better to get them involved in short, sharp, focused meetings, understanding the learning objective, and getting them to capture some stuff in a way that isn't too time intensive. The other thing as well, though, Nicola, is it does challenge the role of SME in the organisation. If the business need is such, you've got confidence that your programme is going to achieve a business need that's going to yield a tangible result, then they're really important. And you've got to find the time. And that's really hard. But the time that they spend is going to be exponentially saved by all the people that they're able to reach out to with an online program, rather than everybody picking up the phone and questioning them all the time. Okay, there will be a recording at the end of it. Thanks, Kathy, on that. And Barbara, you've got my issue is that my SME is a technophobe. He only likes classroom training. Well, again, that may well be an opportunity to don't fight it. If they're really good in the classroom, how could you reuse that material? How could you put it into the blend? As you saw that we did previously, we've blended some of that material from lectures into other using other learning mediums. So actually, do what they are really good at, and ask them the question of, if you were able to have more time with your learners, what else would you do with them? Because the classroom itself, although lots of people really enjoy that environment, for those that really care about learning, it can be quite frustrating because you've got that one moment in time you think, if only I had more time, I could go back to them next week and find out what they used, what's working for them, what they want next. Well, that's what online's going to give them. It's going to give him that extra reach that he can't possibly achieve through the classroom. So work with what he's got at the moment, see if you can record it and see if you can work with him to start to look at, if you were able to support these people on a regular basis over the next month, what would you do with them? And then help to take on that journey and say, well, look, online doesn't have to be technically sophisticated, doesn't have to be high production values, but some simple ways to support them over time could be really, really effective. So thanks for that, Barbara. And I think that's all the questions that I've got. Of course, if you've got any other questions afterwards, please contact me. And thank you so much for coming this morning. I'll let you all go. We run these every month, either through ourselves at Willow, or you'll find me regularly speaking for the LPI as well. We're also at the Learning Technologies Summer Forum on stand 30, so if you want to come and ask me any questions at Learning Technologies, it's free, so do come along. It'd be lovely to see you there. And thank you everybody so much for coming, and hopefully I'll see you on our next webinar. Thank you.